Lesson 8.5, Circumference of Circles. In this lesson, we're going to learn about how to find the distance around a circle, which is called the circumference. The circumference is just the distance around a circle, and it's like perimeter in that it measures the distance around a shape, but circumference measures curves, whereas perimeter measures straight lines. We have a formula that we'll use to measure circumference called C equal pi d. C is the circumference. And then we know pi, which you are not as familiar with, but pi is just a number, and it is about 3.14. It actually keeps on going forever. It's a number that has a decimal that keeps on going. So it's 3.14159, and it just keeps going. And then D represents diameter. That's the distance across a circle. So the diameter is the distance across a circle through the center of the circle. So here we have a circle. Notice this, the outside of the circle in green is the circumference of the circle. It's the entire distance around it. Now, if I were to take a point in the center of the circle, and I were to draw a straight line that goes through that point, and it goes from one edge of the circle or side of it to the opposite side, that's called the diameter. Whoops. And so we've been given this formula, C equal pi times d, where if we know the diameter, we could multiply by pi, which is about 3.14, and that gives us C, the circumference. We've got one more measure to learn about, and that's called the radius. The radius is just half of the diameter. It's half the distance across a circle. It goes from the center of a circle to the outside portion of a circle. And so if we knew the radius, we could multiply by 2 to get the diameter. Or if we knew the diameter and needed the radius, we could divide by 2 to get the radius. So in our example, we're going to find the circumference of each circle. We'll use pi as 3.14. We're just rounding that number pi. Our first problem, we're given the diameter and we need to find the circumference. So we're always going to start with a formula. So we write our formula. We are looking for C, the circumference. We know pi is just a number that we'll use 3.14. And we are given D in this diagram. It's the distance across the circle. So all we do is plug those values in. And then we multiply. 3.14 times 7 is 21.98. And it is measured as inches because it's a distance. So it's measured as just inches. We're finished with this problem. The distance around the circle is 21.98 inches. Over here to the side, I'm just going to quickly kind of check and see if my answer is reasonable. I'm going to check by using an estimate. Now, you don't want to show this every time, but it is a good way just for you to mentally see if your answer makes sense. So if I'm finding my circumference, pi is about 3.14, but we could even say it's about 3. So it should be a little over 3 times 7, and that's 21. And so since we got 21.98, then 21 inches for an estimate made sense. So I would agree. I would say that this answer is correct. It makes sense that if the distance across is 7 inches, the distance around is a little over 3 times that. Okay, for B part, we've got a circle, and we're given the distance halfway across it called the radius. So we want to plug into our formula, and we know that pi is 3.14, but we're not given the diameter here. So we'll have to do a little math on the side to figure that out. The diameter is equal to 2 times the radius. And in this case, the radius is 2 meters. So The diameter is 4 meters. That's helpful, so now I can just plug that in here. Instead of a question mark, I know what the diameter is. It's 4 meters. So I can just go through and multiply 3.14 times 4 and get 12.56 meters. And I could go back and double check and see if my answer is reasonable. 2 meters times 2 is 4 meters, and that times 3 is 12, so our answer seems reasonable.